Hello. Happy, what's today? Friday? Happy Friday, y'all. I love a good weekend day. Um, ooh, there's a bit of a packed plan today. We'll be reading Second Samuel 4 through 8, and then we'll go to Psalms 88. So about 6 chapters today. We're here now. We're gonna do it. I know we left off yesterday with David being in mourning for Abinah, because honestly, he didn't have to go out like that. It's one thing to, like, I can't fault Abinah for killing someone in battle, at war, someone who's actively pursuing you. So, but like being murdered because of that, when you're seeking peace, that kind of. So yeah, that family then gets cursed for leprosy, I believe, boils and leprosy, by David sending out, cursing them, and then he goes and he refuses to eat for like a day to grieve the burial of what he called a great general. And I think even from the few bits of chapters and pieces that I saw of Abinah, Abinah, is that not what I said? He seemed like a very upright, godly person. He seemed like the character you want to see live. So his passing is pretty much where we ended it. His burial is where we ended it. And now we will see where we pick up in Samuel 4. Okay. The murder of Ishbosheth. Ishbosheth, Saul's son, heard about Abner's death. Oh, I wasn't calling this person the right name at all. It's Abner. Yeah, Abner. Okay. So Ishbosheth, Saul's son, heard about Abner's death, and at Hebron, he lost all courage, and all Israel became paralyzed with fear. Now there were two brothers, Bana and Rechab, who were captains of Ishbosheth's raiding parties. They were sons of Rimmon, a member of the tribe of Benjamin, who lived in Beeroth. The town of Beeroth is now part of Benjamin's territory. Because the original people of Beeroth fled to Gittaim, where they still live as foreigners. Saul's son Jonathan had a son named Mephibosheth. Mephibosheth, something like that, who was crippled as a child. He was 5 years old when the report came from Isreal about Saul and Jonathan about them being killed in battle. When the child's nurse heard the news, she picked him up and fled. But as she hurried away, she dropped him, and he became crippled. Oh no. Okay, so which is the right thing to do, because now you're trying to protect him, who is essentially, who has, they have rights. They have rights to the throne, potentially an heir. Usually those are family members. Princes and kings are the first to die once the king dies or the prince dies. So she was, I assume, doing this to protect him, and when she fled, she dropped him and he became crippled, right? One day, Rechab and Banan, the son of Ramon, first of all, the guilt she probably felt from that. Wow, okay. One day, Rechab and Banan, the sons of Ramon from Beeroth, went to Ibosheth's house around noon as he was taking his midday rest. The doorkeeper, who had been shifting wheat, became drowsy and fell asleep. So Rechab and Banan slipped past her. They went into the house and found Ishbosheth sleeping on his bed. They struck and killed him and cut off his head. Then, taking his head with them, they fled across the Jordan Valley through the night. When they arrived at Hebron, they presented Ishbosheth's head to David. "Look," they exclaimed to the king, "here is the head of Ishbosheth, the son of your enemy Saul, who tried to kill you. Today the Lord has given my lord the king revenge on Saul and his entire family." But David said to Rechab and Banan, "The Lord who saves me from all my enemies is my witness. Someone once told me Saul is dead, thinking he was bringing me good news. But I seized him and killed him in Ziklag. That's the reward I gave him for his news. Now, how much more should I reward evil men who have killed an innocent man in his own house and on his own bed? Shouldn't I hold you responsible for his blood and rid the earth of you?" So David ordered his young men to kill them, and they did. They cut off their hands and feet and hung their bodies beside the pool in Hebron. Then they took Ishbosheth's head and buried it in Abner's tomb in Hebron. David becomes king of all Israel. Then all the tribes of Israel went to David at Hebron and told him, "We are your own flesh and blood. In the past, when Saul was our king, you were the one who really led the forces of Israel. And the Lord told you, 'You will be shepherd of my people Israel. You will be Israel's leader.'" So there at Hebron, King David made a covenant before the Lord with all the elders of Israel, and they anointed him the king of Israel. David was 30 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned for 40 years in all. He had reigned over Judah from Hebron for 7 years and 6 months, and from Jerusalem he reigned over all Israel and Judah for 33 years. David captures Jerusalem. David led his men to Jerusalem to fight against the Jebusites, the original inhabitants of the land who were living there. The Jebusites taunted David, saying, "You'll never get in here. Even the blind and lame could keep you out." For the Jebusites thought they were safe. But David captured the fortress of Zion, which is now called the City of David. Does the Star of David stem from this man? Random thought. On the day of the attack, David said to his troops, "I hate those lame and blind Jebusites. Whoever attacks them should strike by going into the city through the water tunnel. That is the origin of saying the blind and the lame may not enter the house." So David made the fortress his home, and he called it the City of David. He extended the city, starting at the supporting terraces and working inward. And David became more and more powerful because the Lord God of heaven's armies was with him. The king of Hiram of Tyre sent messengers to David along with cedar timber and carpenters and stonemasons, and they built David a palace. And David realized that the Lord had confirmed him as king over Israel and had blessed his kingdom for the sake of his people Israel. After moving from Hebron to Jerusalem, David married more concubines and wives, and they had more sons and daughters. These are the names of David's sons who were born in Jerusalem: Shammau, Shobab, Nathan, Solomon, Ibhar, Elishua, Nephgeg, Nephgeg, Japhia, Elishama, Eli, Eliada, 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 and Eliphelet. Yeah. David conquers the Philistines. When the Philistines heard that David had been anointed king of Israel, they mobilized all their forces to capture him. But David was told they were coming. But David was told they were coming, so he went into the stronghold. The Philistines arrived and spread out across the valley of Rephaim. So David asked the Lord, "Should I go out to fight the Philistines? Will you hand them over to me?" The Lord replied to David, "Yes, go ahead. I will certainly hand them over to you." So David went to Baal Prazaim, and defended the Philistines there. Defeated, and defeated the Philistines there. "The Lord did it," David proclaimed. "He burst through my enemies like a raging flood." So he named the place Baal-Perazim, which means "the Lord who bursts through." The Philistines had abandoned their idols there, so David and his men confiscated them. But after a while, the Philistines returned and again spread out across the valley of Rephaim. Then and again David asked the Lord what to do. "Do not attack them straight on," the Lord replied. Instead, circle around behind and attack them near the poplar trees. When you hear a sound like marching feet in the tops of the poplar trees, be on alert. That is the signal that the Lord is moving ahead of you to strike down the Philistine army. So David did what the Lord commanded, and he struck down the Philistines all the way from Gibeon to Gezer. I love all the consultation he's doing. "Lord, should I go?" And the Lord replies, "Yeah, go ahead. Consulting the Lord first. That's a win for me." It's like, how can I apply that to my life today? You know, like, I'm not necessarily taking down armies or like going into battles for whole towns and trying to rid the land of evil. But I gotta ask, like, "Lord, should I go here? Is there a place for me? Is that path open? Is that where you want me to be?" Like, consult the Lord. And then wait for your response. Okay. Moving the Ark of Jerusalem. Then David again gathered all the elite troops in Israel, 30,000 in all. He led them to Baalal of Judah to bring back the Ark of God, which bears the name of the Lord of Heaven's armies, who is enthroned between the cherubim. They placed the Ark of God on the new carts and brought it from Abinadab's house, which was on a hill. Uzzah and Ahio, Abinadab's sons, were guiding the cart that carried the Ark of God. Ahino walked in front of the Ark, David and all the people of Israel were celebrating before the Lord, singing songs and playing all kinds of musical instruments, lyres, harps, tambourines, castanets, and cymbals. But when they arrived in the threshing at the threshing floor of Nacon, the oxen stumbled, and Uzzah reached out his hand and steadied the ark of God. Then the Lord's anger was aroused against Uzzah, and God struck him dead because of this. So Uzzah died right there beside the ark of God. David was angry because the Lord's anger had burst out against Uzzah. He named the place Perez Uzzah, which means to burst out against Uzzah, as it is still called today. David was now afraid of the Lord, and he asked, "How can I ever bring the ark of the Lord back into my care?" So David decided not to move the ark of the Lord into the city of David. Instead, he took it to the house of Obed-Edom of Gath. The ark of the Lord remained there in Obed-Edom's house for 3 months, and then the Lord blessed Obed-Edom and his entire household. Then King David was told, "The Lord has blessed Obed-Edom's household and everything he has because of the ark of God." So David went there and brought the ark of God from the house of Obed-Edom to the city of David with a great celebration. After the men who were carrying the ark of the Lord had gone 6 steps, David sacrificed a bull and a fattened calf. And David danced before the Lord with all his might, wearing a priestly garment. So David and all the people of Israel brought up the ark of the Lord with shouts of joy and the blowing of ram's horns. Michael's contempt for David. Oh, Michael's. This is his first wife. Contempt for David. But as the ark of the Lord entered the city of David, Michal, the daughter of Saul, looked down from her window. When she saw King David leaping and dancing before the Lord, she was filled with contempt for him. They brought the ark of the Lord and set it in its place inside the special tent David had prepared for it, and David sacrificed burnt offerings and peace offerings to the Lord. When he finished his sacrifices, David blessed the people in the name of the Lord of heaven's armies. Then he gave to every Israelite man and woman in the crowd a loaf of bread, a cake of dates, and a cake of raisins. Then all the people returned to their homes. When David returned home to bless his own family, Michal, the daughter of Saul, came out to meet him. She said in disgust, how distinguished the king of Israel looked today, shamelessly exposing himself to the servant girls like any vulgar person might do." David retorted to Michal, "I was dancing before the Lord, who chose me above your father and all your family, and all his family. He appointed me as the leader of Israel and the people of the Lord, so I celebrated before the Lord. Yes, I am willing to look even more foolish than this, even to be humiliated in my own eyes. But those servant girls you mentioned will indeed think I am distinguished." So Michal, the daughter of Saul, remained childless throughout her entire life. So she didn't get to have any kids with David when they were first married. And she seemingly didn't have any kids with her second husband, who Saul had given her to. And now she's back with David and didn't have any children with him. And I don't think it's for lack of trying. I think this was her punishment for viewing... I think this was her punishment for viewing David in contempt for celebrating and dancing before the Lord. For her contempt and disgust. Because that shows like a bit of her heart is bitter. So, just going off of what I know, I would say that this seems to be contempt and disgust, right? Towards God's anointed person, while no, not while, but for celebrating, for dancing and celebrating the Lord's presence, or for the Lord. Yeah, basically, she showed contempt to David for praising for praising the God amongst people in public, essentially. How distinguished you looked. Yeah. Moving. Okay. We're in I'm sorry, 2 Samuel 7. The Lord's covenant promise to David. The Lord's covenant promise to David. When King David was settled in his palace and the Lord had given him rest from all the surrounding enemies, the king summoned Nathan the prophet. Look, David said, I am living in a beautiful cedar palace, but the ark of God is out there in a tent. Nathan replied to the king, Go ahead and do whatever you have in mind, for the Lord is with you. But the same night the Lord said to Nathan, Go and tell my servant David, this is what the Lord has declared. Are you the one to build a house for me to live in? I have never lived in a house from the day I brought the Israelites out of Egypt until this very day. I have always moved from one place to another with a tent and a tabernacle as my dwelling. Yet no matter where I have gone with the Israelites, I have never once complained to Israel's tribal leaders, the shepherds of my people Israel. I have never asked them, Why haven't you built me a beautiful cedar house? Now go and say to my servant David, This is what the Lord of heaven's armies has declared. I took you from tending sheep in the pasture and selected you to be the leader of my people Israel. I have been with you wherever you have gone, and I will destroy all your enemies before your eyes. Now I will make your name as famous as anyone who has ever lived on earth, and I will provide a homeland for my people Israel, planting them in a secure place where they will never be disturbed. Evil nations won't oppress them as they've done in the past, starting from the time I appointed judges to rule my people Israel. And I will give you the rest of all your enemies. Furthermore, the Lord declares that he will make a house for you, a dynasty for kings. For when you die and are buried with your ancestors, I will raise up one of your descendants, your own offspring, and I will make his kingdom strong. He is the one who will build a house, a temple for my name, and I will secure his royal throne forever. I will be his father, and he will be my son. If he sins, I will correct and discipline him with the rod, like any father would do. But my favor will not be taken from him as I took it from Saul, whom I removed from your sight. Your house and your kingdom will continue before me for all time, and your throne will be secure forever. So Nathan went back to David and told him everything the Lord had said in his vision. That line, are you the one to build me a home? Are you the one to build me a home? Please. That's what I heard. Are you? But this is essentially the prophet who prophesizes Nathan, who prophesizes the Lord's that's a lot. But like it's so important because it's essentially the whole response in prophecy. So that's what verses, what does it say anymore? Let's highlight all of this in a distinct color. Oh yeah, let's do something in purple ranges because ooh, yeah. Choose. So this phone doesn't give it to me. I just okay. So that's verses 5 through 16. So 2 Samuel 7 verses 5 through 16 are all God telling him what will be done. It's his covenant promise, and it highlights who's going to be in charge of building the Lord a house, who's going to be in charge of an everlasting dynasty, who's promised a royal throne, a forever royal throne, a strong kingdom. It's like your kingdom's gonna be great. All of this is like I will raise up kings from your line. You know, I was like, you want to build me a home? Sure, but I'm gonna be the one. Who are you? I'm gonna be the one to build you a house, to build you a dynasty, to build you and to like make your name ring in history. And he did. Like if you think of main biblical characters when you're even when you don't know David is probably one of you. Like, oh yeah, that's a biblical character right there. Like most people who aren't even Christians know who David is, or know the story of David and Goliath. Yeah, what happens next, right? Okay. So that right, Nathan went back and I wanted to try to remember as well who all of this is. Okay. Now that leads us to David's prayer of thanks. Then King David went in and sat before the Lord and prayed. Who am I, O sovereign Lord, and what is my family that you have brought me this far? For now, sovereign Lord, in addition to everything else, you speak of giving your servant a lasting dynasty. Do you deal with everyone this way, O sovereign Lord? What more can I say to you? You know what your servant is really like, sovereign Lord. Because of your promise and according to your will, you have done all these great things and have made them known to your servant. How great are you, O sovereign Lord? There is no one like you. We have never even heard of another God like you. What other nation on earth is like your people Israel? What other nation, O God, have you redeemed from slavery to be your own people? You have made a great name for yourself when you redeemed your people from Egypt. You have performed awesome miracles and drove out the nations and gods that stood in their way. You have made Israel your very own people forever, and you, O Lord, became their God. And now, O Lord God, I am your servant. Do as you have promised concerning me and my family. Confirm it as a promise that will last forever. And may your name be honored forever, so that everyone will say, the Lord of heaven's armies is God over Israel. And may the house of your servant David continue before you forever. O Lord of heaven's armies, God of Israel, I have been bold enough to pray this prayer to you because you have revealed all this to your servant, saying, I will build a house for you, a dynasty of kings. For you are God, O sovereign Lord. Your words are truth, and you have promised these good things to your servants. It, and now may it please you to bless the house of your servant, so that it may continue forever before you. For you have spoken, and when you grant a blessing to your servant, O sovereign Lord, it is an eternal blessing. David's military victories. So so he does all of he's enters into this covenant, and then he goes and he prays before the Lord. He gives thanks, and he's humbling himself. He's honoring the Lord's power. He's thankful for all of this. He's being grateful for everything that he's received. He just continues to show great humility. Um, David's military victories. After this, David defeated and subdued the Philistines by conquering Gath, their largest town. David also conquered the land of Moab. He made the people lie down on the ground in a row, and he measured them off in groups with length of rope. He measured off 2 groups to be executed for every 1 group to be spared. The Moabites who were spared became David's subjects and paid him tribute money. David also destroyed the forces of Had I'm sorry. He laid them down on the ground and measured out groups with a rope. 2 groups killed, 1 group spared, 2 groups killed, 1 group spared. How terrifying. Can you imagine being that one person at the cutoff line? God damn. Like right there at the cutoff of being spared, or like, oh my gosh. Wow, that's crazy. That's just crazy. Yeah. David's military victories, so he's doing all of this. He's conquering his enemies. So I just think this, the visual of that, like, what was the length of this rope? He laid them down on the ground and measured them out in groups. All right. 2 Samuel 8:3. David also destroyed the forces of Hadazer, Hadadezer, son of Rahab, king of Zoab, of Zaba. Oh my gosh, king of Zaba. When play it, please.
Chapter 8. David's military victories.
No.
After this,
That's not what I want. That's not what I want.
David captured 1,700. David also destroyed the forces of Hadadezer, son of Rahab, king of
Hadadezer.
Zoba. When David also conquered the land of Moab. He made the people. David also destroyed the forces of Hadadezer, son of Rahab.
Hadadezer. Okay, yeah, listen. Hadadezer. Okay. Alright. So David also destroyed the forces of Hadadezer, son of Rahab, king of Zoba. When Hadadezer marched out to strengthen his control along the Euphrates River, David captured 1,000 chariots, 7,000 charioteers, and 20,000 foot soldiers. He crippled all the chariot horses, except enough for 100 chariots. When Armenians from Damascus arrived at the to help King Hadadezer, David killed 22,000 of them. Then he placed several army garrisons in Damascus and the Armenian capital. Then he placed several army garrisons in Damascus, the Armenian capital, and the Armenians became David's subjects and paid him tribute money. So the Lord made David victorious wherever he went. David brought the gold shields of Hadadezer's officers to Jerusalem, along with a large amount of bronze from Hadadezer's town of Teba and Berotai. When the king of Tow Hamath heard when King Tow of Hamath heard that David had destroyed the entire army of Hadadezer, When King Tow of Hamath heard that David had destroyed the entire army of Hadadezer, he sent his sons Joram to congratulate King David for his successful campaign. Hadadezer and Tow had been enemies and were often at war. Joram presented David with many gifts of silver, gold, and bronze. King David dedicated all these gifts to the Lord, as he did with silver and gold from the other nations he had defeated, from Edom, Moab, Ammon, Philistia, and Amalek, and from Hadadezer, son of Rahab, king of Zoba. So David became even more famous when he returned from destroying 18,000 Edomites in the Valley of Salt. He placed army garrisons throughout Edom, and all the Edomites became David's subjects. In fact, the Lord made David victorious wherever he went. So David reigned over all Israel and did what was just and right for his people. Joab son of Zeruiah, was commander of the army. Jephthah, son of Ahilud, was the royal historian. Zadok, son of Ahitub, and Ahimelech, son of Abithar, were the priests. Sirai was the court secretary. Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, was captain of the king's bodyguard, and David's sons served as priestly leaders. So this is basically the structure of his royal court. I thought Joab was cursed. Didn't David curse Joab and his family members with leprosy for killing Abner? Hi. I didn't. Bear with me, y'all. Wow, I love that this phone changed leprosy to leftist. Okay, leprosy. Abner. This brings us to Psalm 88. For the choir director, a psalm of the descendants of Korah, a song to be sung to the tune of the suffering of affliction, a psalm of Heman the Ezrahite. Okay. O Lord, God of my salvation, I cry out to you by day, I come to you at night. Now hear my prayer, listen to my cry, for my life is full of troubles, and death draws near. I am as good as dead, like a strong man with no strength left. They have left me among the dead, and I lie like a corpse in a grave. I am forgotten, cut off from your care. You have thrown me into the lowest pit, into the darkest depths. Your anger weighs me down, and with wave after wave you have engulfed me. You have driven my friends away by making me repulsive to them. I am in a trap with no way to escape. My eyes are blinded by my tears. Each day I beg for your help. O Lord, I lift my hands to you for mercy. You are wonderful. Are your wonderful deeds of any use to the dead? Do the dead raise up and praise you? Can those in the grave declare your unfailing love? Can they proclaim your faithfulness in a place of destruction? Can the darkness speak of your wonderful deeds? Can anyone in the land of forgetfulness talk about your righteousness? O Lord, I cry out to you. I will keep on pleading day by day. O Lord, why do you reject me? Why do you turn your face away from me? I have been sick and close to death since my youth. I stand helpless and desperate before your terrors. Your fierce anger has overwhelmed me. Your terrors have paralyzed me. They swirl around me like floodwaters all day long. They have engulfed me completely. You have taken away my companions and loved ones. Darkness is my closest friend. What you do? This is a psalm of Heman, the Ezrahite. What you do? That's all I had to know. Because out here, you're pleading for mercy. Like, pleading. That's everything. We've read through it all. I have no prayers to prayer right now. I have no prayers to prayer right now. But I will leave y'all with this the focus on the gratitude, focus on the worship and the praise, because that's what's been bringing me through. Prayer is highly important, but sometimes praise, and you can start with the things that are going right, seemingly taken for granted. But the things that are going right, if you don't have anything that, like, if you're not in a mindset of praise, just start with the small, ground, base level things that are going right. Even if it's not going right all the way, that are right now, that are giving you security right now. And then just see where the Spirit takes you with the rest of your praise, because it can start low and then rate and then crescendo all the way up, and then you really start to, like, clear out some of that gunk that's holding you back and holding you down. So yeah, have fun with some praise and some worship. Bye bye.